was exactly. And we are live. And we're live. Happy Father's Day to our Black King.
Thank you.
We are so excited. Welcome to Coffee and Cream. We are so excited about today's show. We are celebrating our Black fathers on many different levels. We are trying to dispel the negative stereotype of the Black father. Oh, we ain't trying, we are. And today we will celebrate our kings by talking to them about fatherhood. My name is Alberta and I'm Coffee.
I'm Tiffany Davis. I'm Cream.
And together we are Queens of Conversation. And today we have Mr. Garrett Taylor and Mr. Jerome McKenzie as our first fathers. And go ahead, Cream.
Okay. Like Coffee said, we are celebrating fathers, and I just wanted to. I found this great definition of Black father on the World Wide Web, so I just want to share it. Black father, a man who has stepped up to the challenge of raising his children to be kings and queens. Someone who has risen above the negative stereotypes about Black fathers and is a king in his own right. That's the first definition. The second definition is a provider, a protector, a lover, and a strong foundation, royalty in his lineage. And I just want to say that to as we welcome all of our guests on our show today, that is how I view each and every one of you. So thank you again for being on our show. Thank you for raising the bar, setting the standard, and like the definition said, creating that lineage for your family.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And my first question is for Garrett, Mr. Super Dad over there himself. What does fatherhood mean to you?
To me, it's a responsibility, and just accepting the responsibility. You know, and it becomes. It's like when I became a father, it was more than just me being responsible for the young lives that I was blessed with, but also making sure the world around them was better. So it was like a global responsibility that I all of a sudden had. And so, and pretty much from day one, it's just been all about stepping up to the plate and being responsible for their lives and the environment that they're being raised in. So for me, the simple answer to fatherhood is being responsible.
Thank you.
There's some balloons going on back there.
And Mr. McKenzie, what are your biggest what are your biggest challenges being a Black father?
Well, one is
I emphasize Black father. I didn't hear you. I'm sorry. What'd you say?
I said one is all these balloons hit me in the back of my head right now. So your question was, what are my biggest challenges?
Yeah, of being a Black father.
Well, I don't really want to say it's a challenge, really, but to me, it's when people are surprised at how good we Black fathers are. When they seem to be surprised at how disciplined our children can be, how well-mannered they can be, when they're surprised at how we can articulate our thoughts and our directions to our families, you know. And it's not a challenge in as much as it's, you know, what's your problem with your stereotype? So to me, you know, fatherhood, the decision to become a father, it humbles you, it rattles you when you realize that you're going to be responsible for another living being. And it wasn't really a challenge, but it was a wake-up call. So if you want to call that a challenge, that to me was when I graduated from big boyhood to manhood, when I realized that this being is going to be on a planet that I'm responsible for, and I'm going to have to make sure that they turn out better than me. It's sitting down and having that talk with yourself. And sometimes it's seconds, sometimes it's minutes. And I imagine for some people it might be hours or days. I just call that a rite of passage versus a challenge, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned negative stereotypes, Garrett. How can we overcome the negative stereotype of Black fatherhood?
I think first of all, we got to understand that that casting Black men in general, whether it be fathers or not, in a negative light, is just a part of the American consciousness, and it's something that we have to first continue to resist it in our own community. We can't control how others are going to see us, but we have to stop buying into those negativities in our own community. And for every negative example we see, we have to first go back and look towards a positive example, because we exist. We're out here. I've even had situations where I'm having conversations with individuals, and they say, "Well, this wasn't my experience, but I need Black." I'm like, "Well, but focus on your experience. If your experience was positive, tell the story." And I think as a people, we have to do a better job of telling our own stories and being responsible for our own narratives, and know that there's an active, and there's been an active campaign of negativity against us since day one. So we have to be very conscious, just like you're doing today with this show, of promoting the positivity, because it's something it's a constant battle that we have, and we're not doing ourselves any favors. I think we have to be very conscious with our children. No matter what your feelings are on Cosby, whatever, but I still made my kids go back and rewatch that positive show he put out, where there was a positive father, and we have to make sure that we hold on to those images, because they're few and far between.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. McKenzie, as well, and I mean this with respect, as our seasoned father.
Now,
What advice would you?
Well, first define seasoned father.
That means your chicken is good.
The most experienced. You're the most experienced, I would say. I believe you're the most experienced. So, what advice would you give a young father today?
I would tell him to understand who he is, understand himself first. To thine own self be true. Understand what his demands on himself are. Understand what his I'm looking for a word. Understand what his purpose. No, not purpose, but understand what his rules and regulations are within himself. Mm-hmm. And then to make sure, using ancient scripture, which is one of my favorite books, it says, we were created in the image of Yah, and in his image, he created us, which means we have the ability, not only are we the image of Yah, but we also have the ability to produce another living being that also have our Father's image. And so it's I would say to a young man, is you have to be careful to understand who you are and understand the image you want to reflect. And then you have to refine that image, and then you have to create that image in your child. So when people say you're just like your father, that should be a good thing. It should be a person that you've instilled your morals, your statutes, your conduct, and you've injected them into your seed by example, teaching by example. I think that that's the advice I would give to a young person, that it's not a horrible challenge. It's a challenge that you're already built for. All you have to do is bounce your protocol off your heart and off your spirit.
Thank you so much. And Garrett, so I've often was told that there's a difference between a father and being a dad. What does it mean to be a good dad?
It takes time. Time, affection, patience, love. Those principles probably are the ones that guide you the most. I think that to father means to birth, to finance, and you could be a father just by bringing a child in the world, and you could provide financially. But without that close connection, that enduring relationship between you and your child, you're missing the opportunity to be a dad. You know, if you just think about the words, if I walk into a room and I say, "Hello, Father," then that sounds cold. That's absent of a relationship. But when I go in and say, "Hey, Dad," or like if I call my dad, I say like, "What's up, Pop?" You know, that's because we have a close, endearing relationship that's been nurtured and fostered over the years. And I think that's where it takes us um, just to make sure that we're there. Presence is the most important thing. I always say presence over presence any day of the week. You know, you can't buy your way into anybody's heart, but spending time with your child. And I've always challenged brothers because one of the things that we've done because we are thinking responsibly. I think I've talked to a lot of young fathers and they said, look, man, right now it's go time. You know, my kids are young. So while they're young, I'm gonna go ahead and work and get the money up. So then when they get older, I got time to spend with them. So no, you got this in reverse, partner. You know, while your kids are young, they need you there. They need you there more than any other time. When they get 12, guess what? They got their own friends, their own schedules. You know, they're active. When they get 15, 16, they got their cars, they got their driving. They don't want to see you, you know, and I know when I was 15, 16, I was too busy running after girls and my extracurricular activities, you know. So, you know, while we'll always be important, that time that you need your child needs you is when they're young and you can, you know, just offer them a hug and brush their knee when they fall down. Those times are when you give that sense of security and you instill those core values that your child is going to need most from their father.
Thank you. And Mr. McKenzie, as a Black father, what do you want your legacy to be?
Oh, that's a good question. If I have a legacy, I would like it to be a legacy of women and children who have taught their women and children to not be quitters, to you know, get yourself ready for life, to prepare yourself for life, to be wise, to tap into the wisdom of our Creator, to understand that there is only one Creator, and anyone that has not created you is not your God. I need them to understand that, because that unlocks the omniscience of our Creator, and to understand that there's nothing on this planet too great for them to conquer if they utilize the experiences and the intelligence that is given to them by their foreparents, their mother and father, and their grandparents, hopefully, and also their Creator. And they don't have to quit, and that the resources to get anything worthwhile done is within their associate circle. And so they have to build and maintain their associate circles, you know, and to build a very strong network, which today we call an empire, that will be able to pass a baton down to the next generation, so that all the work, let's just say we have done, since we're the ones building the legacy, so that all the hard work that we did put into doing things right and according to the statutes of our Creator, they don't dissipate. You know, they get handed down from one generation to another. And I'll leave that question with this. In the scripture, it says that the iniquities of the fathers is visited unto the sons down and through 3 or 4 generation. And likewise, like we do in math, if you move that across the equal sign to invert the equation, it also means that the blessings and wisdom and intellect of the fathers and mothers will also be visited unto the sons and daughters down and through the 3rd or 4th generation.
Oh, thank you. Garrett, same question. As a Black father, what do you want your legacy to be?
I think more than anything, I would love to know that I left here by imposing a respect of the position of fatherhood. And fatherhood is so much bigger than the individual. Brother Mackenzie was going back into the scriptures, and there's no other greater example than Joseph and Jesus. When you talk about uh, the Son of God, and Jesus had his father is in heaven, but God knew that he needed an earthly father on earth, which is why they would not let him leave. See, we forget that, while we have reverence for Mary and the Virgin Mary, we got to understand that God saw the necessity for fatherhood on earth, and so we got to make sure that we are respecting that position. Now, of course, Joseph could never be as big as God, and he was never going to be as important as God. He can compare, no man on earth can ever compare to God. But in that sense, he knew that position of fatherhood was important. That role that a father plays is the most important thing. And when I write my children's books, you notice one of the things I've always written them from the perspective of a father, or I've always made sure, and even in the illustration, one of my books illustrator left the dad out of a picture, and I was like, no, you got to go back. We have to add that father in that picture. It was just one slide that I mentioned the parents, but in that zone, I needed you to show the dad there too, because we have to make sure that we always respect that position. Because unless we, as a community, as a Black community, really get back to understanding and supporting and valuing the position of fatherhood in our families, we don't have a true opportunity to get to where God will have us to be. So we have to put that unit back together. You can't devalue the mother, and you certainly can't devalue the father. So my legacy, I would hope, would be that I just impress upon others, and especially my own children, the value and respect of having a father.
And this leads into my next question, because my next question was, why is the father the most important role in a Black family?
Okay. To Mr. McKenzie or myself?
We'll go to you first, then we'll go to Mr. McKenzie.
Okay. I don't know if I would say it's the most important. I liken all these things in our community as the chess. It's kind of a chess game. So the most powerful, and I would say it is the most important, because once you fully eliminate fathers from the equation, the game is over. So when you're playing chess, the most powerful position on the board is the queen. The queen can move in directions that a king cannot. The queen has flexibility. The queen has powers that the king does not. So right now, I can look at my sisters. I can say, you all have ability to move mountains that even we cannot. But in the same sense, once we are gone, the game is over. So we have to look at that in the same way, with our own families and our communities. Is that once we allow outside forces to fully eliminate, and fatherhood, I try to always go here, but fatherhood has been under attack. Black fatherhood specifically has been under attack from the time we landed on these shores. I was able to visit breeding farms in South Carolina, South Carolina, and I saw the stations in which the way they separated fathers. They will blindfold you and made you have sex with the woman so that you did not know who your child was, because they knew if the father knew his child, there would be no way you could stop him from protecting his child. So the first thing they did was have a separation, to make sure that the connection between the father and the child was broken. And since then, there's been a continuous set of policies, ideas, and activities to go out and remove us from this equation. So we have to make sure that we understand that they're not, and because the enemy already understands our importance. So we have to understand that once we are gone, once you eliminate fathers, the game is over. So, all the power that our sisters have, they cannot and should not be doing it alone. And I think we have to always remind that. Even I always push back on days like today when they say, "Well, my mother was my father." No, she wasn't. Your mother was a hardworking mother. She was a mother above all others because she did it by herself, but she was no father. And we have to make sure that we hold fast to that, because Once you eliminate that need for fatherhood, or you once you allow people to believe that there's no need for fatherhood, the game is over.
Hmm. Good. I never thought about it that way. Mr. McKenzie, same question. Why is the father the most important role in the Black family?
Well, I'm going to say just about the same thing. And at first, I'm just going to say that, and I can only speak for my relationship and in my household. And neither one of us are more important than the other. We understood the two will become one flesh. So we are two parts of an intricate system that our Creator put in place. So my wife and I understand clearly what our gifts are. The man ought to be the priest of the household, and the woman is to blow the trumpet of Zion. The woman has been given enmity between her and Satan. We understand that very clearly, what that means, both in the physical level and the spiritual level. The man ought to be the priest of the household. He ought to be the one who can be in communication with Yahweh in terms of the direction that the family is going. So I don't think there's one more important than the other. I think it's all teamwork. I think the mother and father should be in constant communication to gauge the growth of the child, the growth of their children. Their job overall is to put seeds on the earth that continue to repeat and continue to multiply. That was one of the first commandments. So, I don't think any one is more important than the other. I believe that it should be, an intellectual dance. It should be a rhythmic dance of the talents of both the father and the mother combined to create oneness or completeness.
Mhm.
Thank you. Um, is white fatherhood, I'm sorry, Mackenzie, is white fatherhood and Black fatherhood different? Why or why not?
Very much so. Very much so. One is because, and that's a really good question, especially today. Number one, Black families don't have the privilege that exists for white people. If white people don't have the red carpet rolled out for them, then half the red carpet is rolled out for them. So does a Black father and his children have to learn to keep their morals in check, have to learn to constantly use their intellect. They have to make sure they do it in a way where you're not offensive to other races of people. I think we have to be better at drawing a fine line um, with our children as to what we expect from ourselves and not just doing what other races are doing. Now we're saying Black and white. We have to make sure that we're not settling for being equal to whites. That's not enough for the Black family, because if you find me any Black father, he's not only the father of his children, he's the father of his sister's children, he's the father of his brother's children, he's got nieces and nephews that he's father. A Black man is blowing a trumpet for a much bigger army than a white father.
That's right.
Amen.
A white father can get away with raising his 2.5 or 2.3 nuclear children. Black fathers, 9 out of 10, are fathering 3 to 4 times more people than their own children. I'm my children's father, but there's almost an entire neighborhood that calls me uncle or dad or whatever, of all sizes. Grown men call me dad, and that's not me. I believe that exists for every conscious father. I think that scenario exists for every conscious father. So we can't settle for just being a father to our own Black children like a white father can. We have got to father outside of our blood nucleus. We have to be outside of the nucleus. Therefore, we can't settle for a nuclear family. Our family is more like a universal family. We have an entire universe, every planet and star being a person or child that we have to pour our spirits into to save our race.
Wow, thank you. I felt that one in my spirit.
Amen, sister.
Gary, the same question. Is white fatherhood and black fatherhood different, and why or why not?
I mean, Brother McKenzie broke it down perfectly. I mean, at the end of the day, it's funny. I just had this conversation with a brother, and I use that term loosely because every time somebody's with you, don't mean they're with you. So, but I'm still hoping and praying and holding out hope for the brother. But because he was throwing out the stat of black on black crime, and I said, okay, brother, if that's that important to you, what are you doing? And he said, well, I'm raising my kids. I said, it's not good enough. You're not doing enough if you're only raising your children. You're not doing enough if the extent of your advocacy it doesn't go past your front door. We have to step up and be there. And understand that the enemy has been strong and under attack. And I'm not giving all these brothers excuse because I'm extremely hard on brothers who are not taking care of their kids. I will go at you. So I'm not the one to complain and cry to if you start talking about child support, because I know how much retainers cost, and I know how much ballet shoes cost, because I'm in this home. So you can't use that with me. However, I understand that the enemy is strong and they've been under attack. So we have to make sure that we are reaching out. And part of that is reaching out. When I'm hard on my brothers, I'm helping them. I'm trying to make sure that I'm looking out for his children as well. And I want to rebuild those relationships. So we have to continue to extend ourselves, not only to our children, but to other fathers. And we have to support and uphold. The second thing is we're training for a different mission. They're training their children for domination. We're training our children for survival. And so at the end of the day, now while I also add to my children that spirit of domination, they can take over the world. And I teach my kids this, and I teach every child I touch that very same thing. I also have to teach survival. So at the end of the day, from the time my son is through here, I have to advocate for him differently. I had to go to school and fight for him differently. The biggest problem you have when you have a well-behaved black child, especially a black son, is that they love him so much they want to pet him in, and just as long as you're good, that's enough. I said, that's not enough for my son. You need to push him. My son is smart. My son is the best reader in his class. And so I have to always fight for them to see their talents, especially my son, more so than my daughter. I have to fight for them to see my son's talent. I have to fight even our own people, because we as a people have somehow not seen the greatness in our boys. So, our girls, think about it. Our girls are already the most educated group in America. Our girls read more books than any other demographic. Our girls are attending college at a higher rate. We're the only group of people where our girls are outpacing our boys in college participation. So our girls, we have no problem of having these displays of Black Girl Rock, but we're teaching our boys either to pass a ball or pass the mic, but we're not teaching them to pass that book. So we have to be I have to be a bigger advocate, a stronger advocate, because I advocate for both of my children, but I have to be a more forceful advocate for my son to make sure that they are giving him his just due from every system he encounters, from day one, especially the public school system. So yeah, the mission is a lot different. The mission of pushing the success, seeing the positivity of a black child, of a black male child especially, and also teaching them how to survive in a world that has been trained to tear them down.
Oh, thank you so much for that. We're gonna continue this conversation. This conversation has so much depth to it, and my goal today was to try to get aspects from single fathers, married fathers, fathers who've been away from their children for a long time. But it's so much to talk about. And I would like to invite you on again at a later time so we can dig a little deeper on Black fatherhood. You guys be open to that?
Absolutely.
That sounds good.
We want to thank the Taylor family and the McKenzie family for joining, taking out their time on this special day. And we look forward to having you back on our show.
All right. Thank you all.
Awesome, ladies.
Thank you guys so much, and happy Father's Day. We love
Thanks
you.
again.
Love y'all.
Love y'all too.
Have you back.
Leave.
That was perfectly. That was nice. That was fine.
Awesome.
Where did it go? Wait. Hola, 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 hola.
Hey, what's up? How y'all doing?
Hey, happy Father's Day.
Where my twins at? Where my babies at? Where my babies at?
They in the hot tub taking over everything.
In the hot tub.
Yeah, we got a hot tub out in the back. So
What?
yeah,
Oh, okay, Black Father.
yeah. So they make everything about them. So it's their day.
You just in a part of their day, huh?
Yeah.
It's good to
Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. When me and Tiffany started to discuss about what we wanted to talk about Black fatherhood, she's like, I really want Ricky Woods. I love the relationship he has with his children.
listen.
You know, how he interacts with his children on Facebook, so on and so forth, how vocal you are. So I was just like, that's not a problem. Let's call him. And you said yes, without doubt. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no doubt. I appreciate y'all for even considering me. That's I love what y'all doing. I've been like dipping in when I can. I see y'all been on a lot, and then I'm glad I checked in early to hear the brothers. What they were saying. The questions was good. So I learned a lot just from tuning in for that little bit of time. So I appreciate y'all for having me.
Yeah, that conversation inspired me a lot. We're gonna explore this conversation a little further. But I'm gonna let Cream start with the first question this go around because I don't want to.
Yeah, so there was one question that I was hoping we were able to get to the last call, but we weren't able to. But I think you'll have a great answer for this one. So a lot of times, Rick, we teach our boys to not, when they're crying or they're hurt, we say, man up, don't cry. Men don't cry. And so I'm just gonna put that out there, right? So how important is communication to with our children, especially when it comes to when they're hurt, they're sad, or they're crying? How important is communication? And if you could let us know how you communicate to your children during those times.
Wow, that's an awesome question. Let's see. So for boys, you're right. In the Black community, we was always taught, shut up that crying, say toughen up, and now that I have children of my own, I feel like that's definitely not good, because it kind of teaches a Black boy not to express himself and show emotion, and I feel like it can also affect them when they're older and get into relationships. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like we breed in these individuals that's hard and that suppress their feelings, So for myself, thank God I have a woman on my side that's very, she kind of deal with the emotional component, more than, I would. And then I just come in, chime in, and just allow him to, cry. It's okay to cry. It's okay to, if you get hurt, it's okay to say, ouch, it hurt. Because like you said, growing up, where we come from, you can't, it's, you get busted in the head with a rock. It's shut up, get back out there and fight, So, that definitely need to be talked about and revisited and just, change the way we deal with Black boys in that respect.
So So what? Tell me, what does fatherhood mean to you?
What does fatherhood mean to me?
Yeah.
To me, it means everything. It's just it's just so important. It's just so important to mold your children and be able to protect them, because it's not easy. It's not easy, but I feel like if I'm not doing it, somebody else will do it, and maybe they might deal with some of those old school methods that was learned behavior. So to me, it's important. It's just important as my next breath. You know what I mean? So, I hope I'm explaining it good enough, but it's very, very important, to being a father, and also being open to learning new things, because nothing against the people who came before me, but some of those methods, just because they was passed on doesn't necessarily mean that they was good methods. It was the right technique. So yeah, it's very important, and I'm always open to learning to be a better father, to try to be the best version of me, I can be.
That makes sense. So, me and my sister, when we talk about my mother, we always say, there's no perfect mother, right? There's no perfect father. There's not a book to say you need to do this, 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 and that, or you need to do this, 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 and that. Sometimes you just gotta go with the flow. And I think a lot of us who have absent fathers, my father just happened to pass away when I was like in first grade. And I long for that relationship with my father to this day. And I'm 40 plus years old, So how do you think we can overcome the negative stereotype of Black fatherhood?
To be honest, with the climax of the way things is going on in the world, it'd be hard to, it's going to be hard to stop that stereotype. You know what I'm saying? Because it's been going on for so long. So for me, to just answer the question the best I can, I would say just kind of leading by example. You know what I mean? Just leading by example and showing the people what Black fathers is about. Forget what they saying or what they write. You know what I'm saying? That's why Facebook could be bad, but it's also good. Some people might look at it as like showing off and being braggadocious, but it's, for me, I kind of like putting stuff out there. I don't care. I'm really not focused on the people that's like something and say, oh, good job, because I don't do it for a pat on the back. My focus is the people who won't never like something, or the people who act like they don't see it, but they see it. And I had people come up to me and say, Rick, I like how you did that with your kids, or yo, you do a lot with your kids. You know what I'm saying? So it's just about leading by example, and letting your success speak. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have to say, I'm a good father, I'm doing this. I'm gonna let you come visit and you sit around my children and you see the vibe and the way they speak and things in that nature. Then you could tell that, I'm working very hard and just leading by example,
Right.
So
okay.
So Rick, I got to see your children grow up. I got to see, well, in certain stages, and I got to see you in action. I also see all your pictures and your stories on Facebook. But can you share what like off the camera, behind the scenes, what are some of your challenges as being a father, and how have you personally overcame them?
Good question. I like that. I really like that question. So pretty much, behind the scenes, sometimes it's chaos. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's like, like my children, they compete, they gymnasts. So, it's heavy competition. You know what I mean? One do a backflip, is like, sorry, that was nothing. I'm gonna do a double backflip. You know what I mean? They just like any traditional family, it's a lot of fights. You know what I mean? It's a lot of, you have to just redirect their energy, bring them back to speed, so it's not all pretty. You know what I'm saying? It's definitely not all pretty. And it's just constant teaching. But one thing I learned, on this journey is that it took me to make mistakes being a father to get better. So, I'm not going to sit here like I'm the best dad, because it's constant work. So I have older children also. So I realized my mistakes and things that wasn't effective. So now like people say, oh, whoop your kid. We grew up, every little thing, we get a whooping, you know what I'm saying? Or another thing that was big growing up was talking back. So you really wasn't allowed to have a voice. So what I try to do is I try to allow my children to have a voice as long as they're not being disrespectful and talking to me as if they're on my level. But if I have to check them and they want to say, well, Dad, I don't feel that's right, instead of doing the old school way and saying, shut up and go to your room, I allowed them to have a voice and let me know how they feel, pardon me, because I'm not always right. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I mess up or I might be frustrated or they might not would have been doing nothing that's, too aggravating, but I'm tired. I had a long day. So I allow them to let me know and check me sometime and say, Dad, I don't feel that's right or whatever. Let them have a voice. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, that's that. I hear that a lot more from today's parents about allowing children to vent and allow them to express their emotions and allow them to even some of them allow their kids to cuss in a respectful way. I don't know.
We ain't cussing up in here, but I have seen it also.
Some people do. They feel like it's a way to express themselves. I mean, to each their own, I guess.
Right.
So, as a Black father, what do you want your legacy to be?
That's a good question. That's very good, and you definitely caught me off guard with that one. That's a good one. So, I really don't know, but I definitely don't want my legacy. I'm gonna start with what I don't want it to be. You know what I'm saying? So, because there was a time in my life where I had to make a decision because I realized why people was maybe respecting me or wanted to be around me or maybe not want to be around me. So I didn't want certain things to be my legacy. You know what I'm saying? So if I got to leave a legacy, when I leave a legacy behind, I just want it to be positive, something positive, and just something they could continue on their life, you know what I'm saying? And just like, I'm going like talking about like generational curses and things like that. I want them to be able to understand where we came from, but also understand how we continue to prosper and move forward because we changed the way we used to think or the way we used to move or the way we used to raise our children, so somewhere along those lines, when I get off this meeting with you guys, I'm going to perfect that answer because that's a great question, but just, somewhere along the lines of positivity and just forward motion,
Right.
Yeah.
That's why you had to be on the show because I love your humility. I love the way you just came out. Just, you know what? And that's what we're all about as a community to embrace, empower, educate all of us, right? And even by asking the question, it's not that you don't know, like you just want to think about it. You want to perfect it in a way so that you will be able to share it with your kids and and share it with other people. But I loved how you started off with the question, what you don't want it to be. So, again, what I love about you. How important is the role of father? Is the role of being a father? How important is that role?
Again, it's very important. I think that I was listening to Mr. McKenzie and Mr. Taylor. Those brothers had some very it was dropping some real heavy knowledge. You know what I'm saying? So, and me and Jerome is close. I learned a lot from him. I look at him as a mentor. So he definitely been showing me some things and just leading by example. But a father is just as important as a mother. Like one of the brothers said, I would never want to put one higher than the other. You know what I'm saying? It's very important because I feel like some things mom can't give to the children. I got that. You know what I'm saying? I have it. I'm a professional at it. I'm good at it. So, and some things that I can't give them because even with my son, I'm really not hugging them up every 5 minutes and kissing them every minute and things like that. You know what I'm saying? I show him emotion, but some things I'm not good at. And mom is better at nurturing, the children. You know what I'm saying? So, moms are awesome at that. And I think that, growing up, a lot of brothers didn't have that. They didn't, and it shows today as men. They didn't, you could tell they didn't get a lot of hugs and, and fathers was absent. That's normal. That's normal in our community. For a father to not be there is normal. Like my friends, like, oh, your dad, okay, it's nothing. You see what I'm saying? So fathers is very, very important. And we definitely need to bring that to the forefront and just keep showing and proving how important the father is. A good father, you know what I'm saying? Because some father, I want to add that, a good father. Because some fathers, I'm going to just be honest, you know what I'm saying? Some fathers, they look better gone, you know what I'm saying? Because they still haven't figured out things in their life, and I think Jerome said it, a person has to find themselves and know what they want for themselves and continue to work on themselves, so they can give their children something positive. You know what I'm saying? Because I know I didn't want to give my children the old Rick. You know what I'm saying? Like I always want to be in their life, but there's some things about me that I don't want to teach. I don't even want them to know about that. You know what I'm saying? So I want to say a good father that want to teach their kids and basically put them in the best situation so they can win. You know what I'm saying?
Ooh, so that brings a question to me. What does it mean to be a good dad?
That's a good question. Y'all got some good questions. Y'all been like, see that now I'm learning. This is something y'all just threw together. And y'all just like, we're gonna get a little platform. Y'all really been getting these things, building them up, and okay, I like that. So you say, go ahead, say it again, because I want to get flow right off of it.
What does it mean to be a good dad?
So let's see. What does it mean to be a good dad? Just let me see. I would say just giving for me, just giving my children the best version of me. You know what I'm saying? And that goes back to, I feel like the best value you have to offer anybody is yourself. I just, been learning that. So, I bring me, to them to help them with their growth and development. You know what I'm saying? So, one of the brothers also touched on that. It's just not about money or what you can buy for them and things in that nature. You know what I'm saying? It's good to be able to do that. You know what I'm saying? But time spent is more important than it supersedes all that. Being at their sporting events. I love to go when my children have their sports, their little games, just to be in the audience, because I know how it feels for a parent to not be present. You know what I'm saying? And you want to show off and you look in the audience and nobody there's rooting for you. So just giving yourself and being there in every aspect of their life, just being available for them to reach out to you so you can help them get through, because it's hard. Life is just hard, period. So just having somebody that got your back 101%, you know what I'm saying? That's what it means to me,
So if there is one thing that you can change or go back as it relates to being a father, what would it be?
That's another good question. So I'm the type of person, I don't regret my past, nor do I wish to open the door on it, and I live by that. So that question, I would take a little time to really figure out how to answer that, because, I appreciate the things that I went through. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to never knock nobody, because as far as when you talk about upbringing in the Black community, some of their methods was a result of the way they learned. You know what I'm saying? So I don't never want to say, well, my father was bad or this father figure was negative and this one showed me that, because I don't know why I know, but I wasn't there for how they grew up and what their upbringing was. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
so
right.
I don't regret, like I made lots of mistakes, and I could have been better here, but, you know, I love where I'm at right now. I can look in the mirror and love what's looking back at me. I'm in a good space. And like I said, I could give them a good version of me. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I really don't, I really can't say, you know, like being a father is like you learn from other people, but you also have to learn what works best for your household. So I learned enough, and the people who helped raise me and the father figures of my father, they got me to a certain level, and I appreciate them. And I said, okay, thank you. I'm gonna take everything that you instilled in me, and then whatever I feel is not right, I'm gonna dismiss it. You know what I'm saying? And then I'm gonna take my own potion and mix it with what you gave me, and now I'm starting my journey and doing things my way.
Right. So, so let me ask you. So, what advice would you give a young father coming? They come up to you like, "Yo, Rick, I got somebody pregnant. What am I gonna do?" What will your advice be to them?
Well, let's see. Me, like, I don't. What would my advice be to them? You know, I would rather, instead of giving them advice, I would rather give them options. You know, I like to give options instead of advice. You know what I'm saying? Because again, you know, I'm still a work in progress. You know, I'm not where I want to be. So I could try to give them, you know, options, your do's and don'ts. You know, we know if we do things a certain way, we know what the results are as far as exposing children to certain things in that nature. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I just try to give them. I don't like the word advice, you know, because if I tell them something and it don't work, then they can say, well, you know, you told me this, and you know what I'm saying. So I like to give options. Like, you know, if you do it the right way, this is what I would tell a young brother, because I talk to young brothers all the time. You know, so I basically would tell them, you know, if you do things the right way and have it's important to have the right mentors. You know, you definitely heading in the right direction, you know, as far as your family, you know, and breaking that generational curse and just getting them on the right track to succeed. So that's pretty much the, you know, the options.
That's the option you give.
Yeah.
Okay. So I asked Mr. McKenzie and Mr. Taylor this question as well. Is white fatherhood and black fatherhood different? Why or why not?
Um, yeah, I would say it's definitely different because you know, I don't feel like a white father really have to go through and deal with the things we have to deal with. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, the conversation is definitely different. You know what I'm saying? With the, you know, our conversations at the table, at the dinner table is definitely different. You know what I mean? For example, you know, my children, you know, we in Atlanta right now, so y'all know about all the stuff that's going on. You know what I'm saying? And children are smart these days, so it's hard to hide things from them. And you don't want to hide things from them. Like, we deal in truth over here, so I want them to know the truth. So for one, the conversation has to be different. So it's some things that I have to tell my children, or when they ask me these questions, I got to be honest and tell them certain things that I feel like a white father, you know what I'm saying, they don't have to talk to their children about certain things. Not saying it can't happen to them, but it don't happen to them. Like, I got a black boy, you know, a couple of them. You know what I'm saying? So the talk is different. So yeah, I think fatherhood is definitely different for more reasons than one. Absolutely. And I have white friends that, you know, that I'm cool with, that have children, you know, and I'm sure they can agree. You know, it's the talk is different, the way we move is different, the mentality is different, you know, the hunger, you know, to the way to teaching them how to move in school and talking to them just about every little thing is different, because we don't have the complexion connection, you know. So yeah.
Well, I just want to say, Rick, I am so proud of you. I really, truly, 110% proud of you. I've seen you. I've seen your growth. I've seen you as little Rick. You know, and I'm
Right.
joking with you, but I am very proud of you. I really and truly am 100%. I mean, keep doing what you're doing. Keep your kids. I love the fact that you got them in different kind of activities, other than the norm, basketball, football. You got them in gymnastics. They're doing extremely well in those sports. I see you teaching them tennis. You're teaching them something different. And I respect that on so many levels. I thank you so much. And we're gonna have another conversation because this conversation was good. It could be so much more deeper. And the way we set things up, we was trying to get different perspectives. So we did it in a level. So I'm gonna, invite you back when we
Okay.
do that, have that conversation with the others, and I hope you accept that invitation. But happy Father's Day.
Thank you. You
I
mind
love
if
you so much.
I add one thing before I
Go ahead.
leave? All right. What's up, Coop? So you mentioned sports, that we got them in. I just want to put it out there for the people that my children are also avid readers. They love reading. Reading is their hobby. We getting books sent from authors. Just from seeing them reading Black books with people that look like them. We got them into books with people that look like them. So they love reading. Reading is their hobby, you know what I'm saying? And I also want to give mom credit also because we just a dynamite team. So it's not, it's just not me all by myself. You know what I'm saying? So, they also sports and reading. So I want to just leave it as that, leave you guys with that. So thanks for having me. Have me back again. And y'all have a
We
good
will. Thank you. Enjoy your Father's Day. We love you.
Thanks.
Welcome, Mr. Rand and Mr. Davis. Happy Father's Day.
Oh, how you doing, Miss Alberta?
My name is Coffee. Thank you very much.
Oh, my fault, Coffee. Miss Coffee.
Hi. Yes, Mr. Will Rand is my brother-in-law, and Mr. Franklin Davis is the husband of Cream, Tiffany Davis. And thank you guys both for participating. Will, I'm gonna be honest, I was a little hesitant in inviting you on this because I didn't know how you would take it. Thank you for accepting the invitation. Look for my questions. And we are talking about the role of fatherhood, and especially Black fatherhood in particular. So I'm going to ask the first question to Mr. Franklin Davis.
Amen.
What does fatherhood mean to you?
Fatherhood to me is basically taking the time to one. I think the first part is to be mindful of what you're trying to instill into a child. And then I think that fatherhood is everything that happens in that relationship to get to that desired point that you would like. So I used to think, and I think a lot of people think that fatherhood was the completion of our quote unquote dream. Oh, I want to get older and I want to buy a house and I want to do this and I want to have some kids. So it was like the thing that completes our mission or desires and our in our mind. But it actually, fatherhood, in my opinion, is just that, what you instill and put into a child. So that process, and I think everything that happens in life is what helps you to get to that desired result.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Rand, what are your biggest challenges? What are the biggest challenges in being a quote unquote Black father?
Ooh. I think one of the biggest challenges as being a Black father, the deck is already stacked against you, and it's stacked against you from the Black female perspective, from society perspective, from every area perspective. And, I think that in itself, if you make it through at the age that I am, and you're a Black man, you really are doing something. God got a purpose for you, because the deck has been stacked. But yeah, even though the deck has been stacked, you know, God still always make a way for those who persevere, you know. And fatherhood for me, man, you know, I was kind of hesitant to come on, but I said, well, maybe I can help somebody. You know what I mean? You know, because losing a son, it's like losing a part of you. You know, I like what Franklin said. You know, losing a king, losing losing a king, losing a part of me. You know, but you know, I thank God that God allowed him to have me a grandson who I can still instill in, and in other programs that I'm trying to start. Which called A House of Hope, which is helping guys when they come out of prison and jail. Helping young guys, trying to understand that they don't have to get caught up in the system. You know, fatherhood to me is, and you know what really helped me out a lot, Coffee, was when I did, you know, the time in jail and the time in prison. I told God, I said, God, if you give me a chance to make my way back to help some young black guys, some young guys in the neighborhood, some young guys in my family, whether it be my nephew, my cousin, guys in my church. But fatherhood to me is everything, you know, it's everything, because you get an opportunity, that God gives you opportunity to instill in, and I say king because that's what I treat, you know, my young, and that's the attitude that the young brothers should have. They are kings, you know. So and I thank God for that. For, you know, to me, fatherhood is everything. Learning how to be a husband, learning how to be that man that God has called you to be, you know. And losing a child, it really give me another perspective of to keep pouring in other men. You know what I'm saying? Because even though they're not my sibling child, I never forget that my granddaddy told me, he said, listen, he said, you might be my grandson, but I'm going to treat you like a son, you know? And that really showed me some things about fatherhood. You know, that showed me some things about fatherhood, that whether you have, you know, some people call them stepchildren, but I call them children, because if you are pouring into them, then guess what? They should be called your children.
Right. Thank you so much for that. And I'm sorry for your loss. And in so many ways, you know, I understand your pain. Franklin, what are your biggest challenges in being a Black father? Well, I want to rephrase the question to you, because I understand that you came into, like, when you met Tiffany already had children, right? So what are your challenges being what do you call it, blended family, being a father with a blended family? I don't know I think you're on mute. You're on mute.
So we've been together for a long time now. So we can kind of say, you know, we have hindsight, you know, but so I kind of use that also. But coming into it, you really don't know what to expect, you know, because I think that the attention is actually on the relationship between you and the mother, you know. So the kids are really kind of that secondary thing. And then I think that you start to think to yourself when you say, well, man, I love her, I think I want to be with her for a while. And then you have to start to have those conversations of, you know, the kids and how is that relationship gonna go? So then once you decide, well, we're gonna be together and we want to have this awesome family and all of that, then there's a different set of there's a different work that has to take place now, because now this relationship with these young kids has to be nurtured and it has to be worked. what I find is that the younger the kids, the easier I would say it is to for that to happen. I think the older the kid, or like a little bit older kids, you know, can be challenging. And then I think once kids are like say adults, I think it's easier. It goes back to being a little easier when you come into a relationship like that. So if someone was coming into a relationship and the significant other had a child that was say 21, 22, as adults, at that point, I think they kind of understand relationships a little bit, and they're open to, hey, my parent is now in this new relationship. So I think they're, you know, they look at it different. Young kids, it's easier because if you come in, young kids don't want a whole lot other than some time and attention, you know. So with young kids, you give them that, they're gonna that bond will that bond will happen a lot sooner. Now, when kids are 10, 11, 12 years old coming into a relationship, well, now I think those are the very challenging ones because they have their own mind on some things, and you know, they may not be ready when they see that now my mom is giving this attention to this man. That could be a challenge and a hindrance in the relationship with the kids growing as fast as it potentially could. So, you know, the challenge in a blended family is the relationship and the time that's put in with those kids, you know.
Thank you so much. Welcome, Mr. Harrison. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Hello, how are you?
Welcome. So Robert is a good friend. He's probably one of my good friends that lives in Washington, D.C. He's a single dad, and I felt that it was important to have a perspective from a single father of a daughter. So, Robert, I'm going to ask you this question to you. What does fatherhood mean to you?
What does fatherhood mean to me? That one's a little tricky. As a black guy, I mean, it's hard just being a single dad in general, but it takes on a whole new perspective just being a black single dad. And to me, the biggest thing that I've learned about fatherhood and what it really means to me is giving of yourself emotionally and physically and spiritually to another person without the thought or care for anything in return. It's just giving of oneself to somebody totally other than self, more than you care about your own self.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, Mr. Rand, what advice would you give a young father? If somebody came to you like, oh, Mr. Rand, I got somebody pregnant. I don't know what to do. How can you help me? What kind of advice would you give this young man about fatherhood? I can't wait. You're on mute. Hold on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
One thing I would encourage him to do is always be in that child's life, regardless of whether you and her are still together or whether y'all make it or not. But always make sure you are the one that's pouring into that child, not somebody else. Because listen, you have to cherish the moments of the time with your children, because they grow up so fast. They grow up so fast and they grow up so quick that you have to cherish every moment. So what I would say to that young man, yeah, it might look like it's a mistake, but it might not be a mistake, because God don't make mistakes. See, but this is your opportunity to grow up and grow up fast. So I would tell him to make sure, whether you with her or not, is to make sure that you are a part of that child's life, and that is so important, because that way you won't allow somebody else to pour into him or her. You be the one pouring into him.
Right.
Yes.
That's good. That's good. Robert, as a Black father, what do you want your legacy to be to your daughter?
I want it to be more so geared towards be your own person, be independent, and don't depend on nobody but yourself. I mean, because as being single, you don't necessarily get the luxuries of always being able to lean on people to assist you and guide you through situations. So learn to constructively work through all problems that arise, and more importantly, be your own self. Never let anybody else gain control of your emotions. Never let anybody can gain control of your feelings to where that it's actually controlling you. Never give up the power of you to anyone. So as long as I can believe, if she can understand, never give up her own power to anyone, then I think she'll be all right.
Okay, this gonna lead to a different conversation, because in this day and time, especially with in relationships with Black men, we always say, "Oh, women, y'all too independent. Y'all don't need us," so on and so forth. So, with that concept in mind, when you say depend on yourself, you mean that? Let me ask you this: do you want her to get married? This is a whole nother conversation. I really don't want to ask this question, but so do you want her to get married, right, one day, and have her family of her own? But do you think teaching her independence will affect that marriage?
I think, and that's a two-part question, to be honest with you, because see, there's a difference where we get in many cases right now where we get confused is we get confused with strong Black woman versus independent Black woman. Independent Black woman, generally you always hear, I don't need no man, I don't need this, I don't need that. Well, if you don't need anything, then why do you need a man? But as a strong Black woman, that means you can be that anchor that he needs, and he can also support you, and you can support him, and you guys can then forge your own future together. So I'm trying to build that strong Black woman as opposed to that independent Black woman.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that, because that's a whole nother conversation that we was gonna have a little later. Welcome, Darnell Cropper. How are you? You're on mute. Happy Father's Day.
Oh, thank you. Is it off me?
So we're talking about fatherhood today. We are celebrating our Black fathers. Mm-hmm. And my first question to you is, what does fatherhood mean to you?
Fatherhood means to me, basically, it's a tireless job. I'm very excited about being a father. It's been a long time coming, but I just look forward to actually coming home to my kids, spending time with them every chance that I get. So,
thank you. So I asked this question in a previous conversation. I'm going to switch it up differently. It says, "Why is the father the most important role in the Black family?" And I always was taught, let the man lead, and woman be the backbone in the household. So, is the father the most important role in the Black family, Mr. Rand?
Oh my God! Okay, yes, I think so. Listen, I think so because of a couple of reasons. The first reason I think so is because I love the mother, because a mother can give you some kind of nurturing that some of the things that the father can't give. That's why those two parents are important. But from a father, you get your identity. You know what I'm saying? You get your identity from your father. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's why the fatherhood is so important, because that's where I get my identity of who I really am and how I can grow, how I can, you know what I'm saying, and what I can be. And that's where my identity comes from. And society has taken that away from the Black fathers. And I admire when he came on to say about his daughter. That's so That's so admire. I admired that thing. I admire Franklin, stepping in and being, what I'm saying, a father to some that he didn't biologically have, but yet he still stepped in. Those are real fathers. Those are real men. So that's where they get their identity from, and I really agree with that. The identity part comes from the father.
Thank you. Franklin, same question.
Say that question again.
Is the father the most important role in the family, in the Black family?
Um, yeah, I mean, when you look at any partnership, um, there's not gonna always be uh, there's not going to always be like the uh, we're gonna agree or think the same exact way. So in the times where there's a difference of opinion, you know, you have to go through something, you know. And I think historically how things have gone, I think, like that it's like, okay, well, the father will have the last say, or historically it would be the mother would say, "This is my answer. Now go ask your father," or but the father would kind of have that final say with things. I think that having that in place, it helps with parenting, it helps with the relationship, um, but also just the different dynamic that they bring. If you have, uh, so I guess the term most important part we can, kind of talk and discuss, um, but he's extremely important because if you have young Black sons and, it's very important. And with young ladies, it's very important for these two reasons. One, um, relatability. Like Robert has a daughter, and at some point, or I don't know if she already has, but at some point, when that young lady, hits puberty and she has her cycle, and she starts having those cramps, we can't identify with that pain. You know, we can be there to nurture her and try to be there for her, but we don't understand that pain. And then vice versa, the things that young Black boys or young boys go through, women can be there for them, but they don't know, their pain or feel, their pain going through it. Um, and then with young ladies, I think that the father is the first um, man that she sees and decides what she's going to accept in her life. So for those two reasons, I think that the importance of the man or a Black man as a father is extremely important. You're going to give this young lady a visual of what a real man looks like, and when you have these sons, you're there to relate to what they go through as young men.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good. Mr. Cropper, I understand that you have two young children, right?
Yes, yes.
So, what is your biggest challenge being a Black father with your children being so young? And what are the ages? What are the ages?
I have one who is 5 and one who is 2. So right now it's just the stages of the clinginess, really for both of them. So I haven't even got to the teenage years or anything like that now. It's more or less, can I have, I want, they're always around me, and I got I'm touching them, lifting them up, hugging them. Basically it's how could I put it? It's really it's like the emotional side of it right now that I have with my kids. So you know.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Mr. King, welcome to the conversation.
How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm great. How are you? Happy Father's Day.
Thank you.
So, we are discussing fatherhood. And my first question to you would be what does that mean to you? What does fatherhood mean to you?
what does fatherhood mean to me?
Yes.
Is that the question?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Can
Yes.
everyone hear me? Good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It- Fatherhood to me means that I've been given an incredible blessing to be someone's hero, someone's living example. Um, and it's an incredible responsibility. It's helped me to also to think of the things that I do, things that I say, the way that I live my life, and lastly, I know that my obligation is to make sure that my children are able to take care of themselves and their families when I'm gone. So that's what I think of when I think of fatherhood.
Thank you. So I want to ask everybody the same question. What do you want your legacy to be? What do you want your legacy to be as a father? Let's start with Robert. What do you want your legacy to be?
Wow. I guess the real legacy I want is I raised an amazing young woman who's going to go out and impact the world. I guess that's the true legacy that I want. And she has the ability to not only guide her future, but impact others.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cropper. What do you want as a Black father? What would you like your legacy to be for your children?
Well, I would like for my kids basically to pave their own way, um, think for themselves, able to do for themselves, basically be the best person that they can be. I want them basically to give society something that they never even saw before as Black individuals, um, something positive. That's the way I try to raise them right now.
Okay, thank you, Danilius.
So for my legacy, what I would want to leave for my children, or what I would want my children to get from me, is number one, to put a strong emphasis on family. We come from strong roots. When I was a child, we had 6 living generations in my family, and so we grew up doing certain family traditions that were passed down from generation to generation. And so I would want my kids, my children, to carry that on. I want them to be able to think critically so that they can solve problems, to be able to think themselves through problems. And then last but not least, to be the best version of themselves and to strive for excellence. And so I hope that in my daily walks, going to work, owning a business, working, part time, just working hard and doing whatever I have to do for my family. I hope that they learn that by watching me do it.
Right, thank you, Mr. Rand.
Oh my.
What,
What was that question again? I didn't hear. Nah, just
as a Black father, what do you want your legacy to be?
oh my God.
So your legacy is now into Josiah.
Nonsense to Josiah. And what I want my legacy to be, Josiah, is that I want him to not just to exist. I want him to make a difference. And when I say make a difference not only in his life, but everybody's life around him. You know what I'm saying? So my legacy would be that, and I also come from a strong family root. So I would definitely, God first, family, and learn how to be more than what people say you are. You know what I'm saying? And I want him to have that same mentality. You know what I'm saying? Because he's smart, and even at 6 years old, I mean, he can read and he's smart, and he's, I'm always trying to pour into him, and that's so important that he knows that no matter what you face, you are more than just existing. So, and that's the legacy I really want him to know and to have.
Thank you, Franklin.
I think what was very important to me and Tiffany early on, because it's just life, and it's our reality is that we've had generational curses, we've had those things, that have happened in the family that you're not happy about, that you don't like, and so we've made a very conscious effort to break those chains, and so when I look at, because our kids are older now, and they have their own families, so a lot of those things that we looked at as those generational curses have been broken, and that was a major uh, accomplishment, but that was a major focus in our lives. Just as one of the things was teenage pregnancy. That was a thing that we were very adamant about, and our oldest daughter, she broke that cycle, of teenage mothers. So that was a very important thing. So, and moving forward, that they carry on being mindful of those things, and then also, like Danilius and Brother Rand was saying, that strong family bond, and now taking that and now focusing on the family bond and continuing that throughout their lives.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, our show is coming to an end. There's so many so many questions I still have yet to ask. Tiffany and I are going to continue this conversation, probably on a different platform, because the responses were very deep, and a lot of people need to hear them. So I'm going to ask that, as it relates to being a Black father, I want you to finish the sentence. I am, as it relates to being a Black father, I am. I'm gonna start with you, Robert. I am somebody.
I am determined not to fail when it comes to my young Black child.
All right, I'm determined not to fail. Mr. Rand.
Yeah, on mute.
Wait, you on mute, Rand? Will.
Okay, thank you, Frank. That's why I like you. I am determined and dedicated to make a difference in my grandson and every Black man that I pour into.
Oh, amen, amen. Mr.
Crawford. I'm encouraged to do the best for my kids and their outlook on life going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
I am committed to working the rest of my life with this fine ass I got, and having the best family we can have.
Amen.
And Mr. King.
I am fundamentally committed to giving my children the best living example I can be, while also making my ancestors proud.
Amen.
Ooh, amen. Well, thank you to all the wonderful Black fathers on this panel today. We love you. We appreciate you. We salute you for all the hard work and dedication that you are instilling in your children as well as the world. We are going to have another conversation, and I may invite some of you back. I ask that you please accept the invitation, because our goal was to try to get different fathers in different areas in their life. And again, this conversation was way more than I expected to be. I guess I did. Well, on that note, I'm Alberta. I'm Coffee.
And I'm Tiffany Davis. I'm Cream.
And together we are Queens of Conversations. Thank you guys so much, and happy Father's Day!
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.